Good afternoon. I like seeing all the red t-shirts around the audience. It's amazing. Mary Frances spoke briefly about these girls that are affected by sex trafficking in this city. And, my name is Katrina. I'm the founder of an organization called MPower. And what we do is affect change through prevention, education, as well as transition. And more importantly is how we do it. I've been living in this city on and off for most of my life. I've been doing this work now for a little over 5 years, but it's a little bit more than that. In my personal life, I'm a mother of 5, and I'm responsible for someone else's $3.8 million. And more importantly, I'm a survivor of sex trafficking. Being here in Atlanta and seeing the evolution from the 80s to the 90s to 2014, when I was in the life and I wanted to leave, there was no help. There was no one out there. And by the grace of God and loving parents and loving grandparents, I found a way out. And in finding that way out, when you're there, the fear of leaving becomes so much stronger than the fear of going, that you are stuck. And again, it's not a choice. And, it gets to a point in a place and time where the fear of staying becomes stronger than the fear of leaving. And that's when that courage kicks in. And that's when you turn your back on that situation, on that pimp, on that trafficker, on that life, and you move forward. Quite often, when I do speaking engagements, people desire for me to talk about, well, what happened to you, and how did you get stuck in this situation, and how did you get out? And, more importantly than the actual story and the experience are all the things that led up to that and that make these young girls vulnerable in the first place. There comes a place and time that we have to address the sexual abuse that occurs in the home. We have to address the domestic violence that these young girls are subjected to, because those are the things that happen in their lives that open those doors and have, those vulnerabilities are there. So when that first guy walks up and tells her how beautiful she is and tells her that that he loves her, she's wide open. She's wide open to whatever. One of the ex-traffickers that does work in the country, he shares a story often about how he picks and chooses his victims. And he says that he walks in the mall, and if he sees a young girl or a young lady walking by themselves, he would walk up to them and tell them how beautiful they are and how pretty their eyes are. If that woman looks straight at him or that girl looks straight at him and says, "Thank you," and keep moving, he knew that she wasn't the one. It's the one that looked down at her feet when he gave her a compliment, because immediately he knows at that moment in time, there's a void. There's a void. And in stopping and preventing the sex trafficking of our girls and our women in this city, we must begin to address that. We must begin to address those young girls who look down at their feet when they're told that they're beautiful. When does that change? When do the fathers have such an instrumental part of their lives that no matter who, no matter when, no matter what happens, they understand and know who they are and where they stand? So the biggest part of what we do with MPower is me being a survivor and reaching out to these girls like me has the most profound effect that I've seen on women and young girls in the city. And quite often, we see the women on the corner, and we see those that are now in their 30s, now they're in their 20s, and they're still out there, and they're still struggling, and they're still stuck. Please understand that they were once that 14-year-old, and they were once that 13-year-old. Quite often, we talk about the girls, and please understand that there's lots of women that are stuck as well. But when do we begin to address the issues? When do we begin to address what goes on behind those closed doors in the home? And that's how we stop sex trafficking. And it's a horrible thing that these men do to these girls and to these young women. But we also must understand that they were little boys too. And we have to begin to address that some of those same issues and vulnerabilities that that young girl had that got her in that place and got her stuck is the same exact issues that that man who's now violating and trafficking those little girls was once that little boy. So as we rise for our girls and our young women affected by sex trafficking, we also must rise for these little boys so that they don't grow up to treat these young women in the way that they've been treated. And thank you. So today, I rise for girls like me. I rise because someone rose for me. There wasn't very much that's out there, but there's such a movement now in this city. There's such a movement in this country. And, when I talk to leaders who've been a part of the women's movement for years and years at a time, and they tell me about the beginnings of the domestic violence movement and what that looked like. And I can't help but feel that that's where we are with sex trafficking now. And I can't help but have hope and understanding of what that looks like 10, 15 years down the road. This is no longer a conversation that people don't have. This is no longer a conversation that people aren't aware of. People are becoming more and more aware. And it's very important that we continue that conversation. It's very important that we continue to rise for those who can't help themselves. And it is very important that survivors of whatever it is, because we are all a survivor of something, and it all serves a purpose, and that we rise for that issue and we rise for them. They need us. Thank you.